growing up in a small, redneck community up in the mountains, and then getting thrust into the Marine Corps, where everyone from, East Texas all the way over to New York City goes to boot camp together. So when we got there, it was a culture shock.
Hey there, welcome to Making a Man, the podcast where we dive into the stories and lessons that shape young men today. Whether you're raising a son or you're just curious about learning through a young man's perspective, you're in the right place. I'm Kevin.
I'm Axel.
And together, on each episode, we're going to bring you insights and advice to help guide the next generation.
Let's go! Oh!
I want to welcome everyone to Making of a Man podcast. Today we have with us retired Marine Master Sergeant Taylor Jolly. A little intro first, Taylor. Taylor was deployed with the Marines in the invasion of Iraq in 2003, and he was in Ramadi, Iraq from 2004 to 2005. Later, he would go on to work as an operator in a special missions unit and deploy approximately 10 more times. Taylor's awards include the Navy Cross, 3 Bronze Star medals, Navy Commendation Medal with Valor Device, and the Purple Heart. Taylor retired in 2019, and he's been working for a counter-child trafficking nonprofit called the Sentinel Foundation, where Axel and I met Taylor at a Sentinel Foundation event, and we're super impressed with him. And the whole way home, Taylor, Axel just talked about you nonstop, so I appreciate you coming on our podcast, and welcome to Making a Man. We're glad you're here.
I'm excited to be here. It's an honor to be asked to be on a podcast like this, so I really appreciate it.
Oh, man, we really appreciate it. I think Axel and I were talking about this before, and maybe just start with maybe the inspiration you had to become a Marine. That was what really made that happen. That would be interesting to hear.
You want the honest answer?
Yeah, of course.
Well, I don't think that I had any plan to go into the military until after 9/11. I was in college to go do law enforcement, and my entire life I had kind of grown up watching Matlock and Murder, She Wrote, and things that, Kevin, you may remember.
Oh, yeah.
Things that my parents watched. It was always, Dick Tracy and long jackets and all the detective glasses, and the crime scenes, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. So I was going to college for criminal justice, and while I was there, 9/11 happened, and I signed up for the Marine Corps the day after 9/11, and I think that part of what drove that was the desire to get out of my small town. I grew up in Wilkesboro, North Carolina, or West Jefferson, up in the mountains of North Carolina. So there's not a lot to do besides get in trouble. Kind of go south from there. Whether you get, most of my family has been either in jail or around jail, or at some point been threatened to take to jail. So I didn't want to be that statistic. I knew that if I didn't get out of that town, it was probably going to happen. And to be honest with you, I grew up without my biological parents. My grandparents raised me, and my grandpa died when I was about 13. So right about the time that I needed a dad to show me how to do, man stuff and be a man, I was sitting in a beauty salon with my grandmother, listening to women talk all day. So you want to talk about something that kills your testosterone, your manlyhood real quick. Sitting around a bunch of women all day talking about hair and men and, Vogue magazine or whatever. So I just felt the need to do something manly for myself, and I thought, well, I don't have a dad around. Not that I was complaining about it. I knew the circumstances. I wasn't mad at anyone, but I thought, well, if I'm not going to do it for myself, I'm going to have somebody do it for me. I thought, who better to do that than the Marine Corps? So I think combination of me wanting to grow up and be more manly, and be on my own. I had just gotten engaged, so my fiance was not super happy about me going in the Marine Corps. And I didn't really consult anyone, but I think those, wanting to be a man, and then do something on my own, and then do the hardest thing that I could, even though that was the first real hard thing I had done in my life, those were all driving factors. And along with 9/11, you remember how patriotic everyone was. It was flags, red, white, and blue everywhere. So those 3 things together kind of pushed me to that decision, which I probably wouldn't have done any other time. So.
Well, that's an incredible journey. You're in college, you're engaged, and all of a sudden you're like, guess what? I'm going to go do something completely different. And that was an inspiring moment. I remember it. It was, it was a time when I think the country was really unified, and it was a very patriotic time. And hopefully we're coming back to that kind of unity as a country, hopefully soon.
I would hope so as well.
You think about that, the experiences and the accomplishment you had in the Marines. What have those taught you? Was there, you were going into with eyes wide open. Was there a specific experience that made you wake up and say, "Oh man, anything that changed your life from coming from a small town in North Carolina to going into the Marines?" Was there a specific instance that right away you were like, "Wow, this is a wake up call for me"?
I don't think I had been integrated with a group of people that wasn't from my town. So I think growing up in a small, redneck community up in the mountains and then getting thrust into the Marine Corps, where everyone from, East Texas all the way over to New York City goes to boot camp together. Because I went to Parris Island in South Carolina. So when we got there, it was a culture shock. There's guys around me that may not have the same views that I do about things, same religion. There was Catholics there. I don't think I'd ever actually met a Catholic prior to that, maybe one in my whole life. So just a yeah, difference in religion, the difference in background, the difference in ethnicity. It was a culture shock for me. But I don't know why, but I enjoyed it. I liked the variety of people that were there. I liked hearing other opinions because I had pretty much heard only one story my entire life, which is, a small town story. Everybody's Republican, everybody's conservative, which I obviously still am, but you want to make that decision on your own. And I got to kind of be around people that had, differing opinions and views. And I think that was one of my favorite things about it. But also one of the hardest things was how do I fit in with people that don't wear camouflage and drive big trucks?
Yeah. It's funny you bring this point up because we try to have a theme like before we have a show like this, and one of it I just came across this today, and we were talking about it is the ability to adapt, and I'm sure you've experienced this in life and as a Marine, you have a mission, whatever you're trying to accomplish, you have a plan to accomplish that, but sometimes the plan goes to shit, right? Like the mission stays the same. We want to accomplish the same thing, but you write out a plan and it usually doesn't go that way. So how can you adapt? And like from day one, you had to adapt to different people, right? Walking right into the Marine Corps, there's a bunch of people that, so from day one, you had to learn how to adapt and probably, I would imagine, carry that into every mission. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, I don't think I didn't grow up with the adapt and overcome mindset. I don't think, other than my grandmother forcing me in the sports or my mom, I don't think I had to do anything. So when I got there, it was either do it this way or go home, and we kick you out. You're gonna get served papers and all these threats that the Marine Corps gives you. So I think forcing me into adapting and overcome while I was in boot camp made me realize that it wasn't that hard. I did like it, and I did enjoy adapting and to different things and different different lifestyles and the Marine Corps, the military. It definitely carried on. I would say I didn't really learn how to do it with class, until I got to until I got here to Bragg and started working for that special missions unit. But I think they do teach you how to persevere, which kind of goes along with being flexible. Perseverance, whether you like it or not, is pushing through things you don't want to do, which in some cases can be considered flexible because you've got to work around the plan that you really like, that you worked a week and a half on, and take that plan and crumple it up, throw it in the trash can, and make a new one. And I did enjoy the on the spot creativity of trying to come up with new things quickly under stress or under duress, not because I was good at it, but because I wanted to learn how to be better at it. I think.
Actually, we've been waiting to ask
Yeah.
Taylor some questions.
So I know becoming a Marine is probably very, very hard, but what was the hardest part about your training to become a Marine?
Well, I think, I mean, I grew up playing video games and riding dirt bikes and waking up at 9 o'clock, or 8 o'clock when school was starting. So waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 4:30 in the morning, adjusting my schedule, and then growing up, I would say in boot camp, and then just the physical duress. In high school, if it gets hard, you can quit. If sprints are too hard, you can slow down. There's no slowing down. There's no quitting unless you want to be that turd in the back. Which I didn't want to be. So I think part of it was, um, I, I think the physical challenge of getting past being a kid, with the baby fat, the high school, whatever, and a little bit soft, and doing 20 pull-ups or 100 crunches or whatever the standard was, it was hard and it hurt. And I think that between that and the shock of having to listen to someone yell at me at 5 o'clock in the morning instead of casually waking up to my grandmother telling me to wake up 30 times was hard. That was more mentally challenging probably than physically, but add that all in with very little food and Paris Island and pretty hot weather in a swamp way out of my element and out of the mountains. Boot camp was probably the one thing I wouldn't go back and do over again. I would do selection for my unit, my special missions unit again. I would do a lot of things over again. But boot camp is hard enough. I have no desire to go back and do that twice. So
Taylor, you think Axel is 12, he'll be 13 coming next year, and if you take yourself back to when you were that age, is there any advice that you would give Axel that you wish someone would have given you at that point?
I wish I would have read more about things that I didn't know. So, coming from a small community, like I told you, there's a ways around, being cultured and getting outside your community. You can read. And I feel like if I would have spent more time in books, and I have as I've gotten older, even though I'm still not a big reader, I'm a movie guy all day long. I grew up my mom owned a movie store, so I love movies. But if I would taken time and done more historical research on, what started the Marine Corps, what started our military, where we came from, other than history class in high school, which no one pays attention to, I think I would have been better prepared when I went into the military, and then just for later on in life. But my vocabulary was good. My mom was big on spelling and words and things like that. But really, history I was lacking in, and I didn't really get cultured in that until I got into the military. And I wish I had taken time to read more about it and spend my time reading as opposed to playing video games. Although I think the video games probably did good for my hand-eye coordination, and I still like them and I support it. I still think if I'd read more, it would have made my life a lot easier for sure.
Yeah, well, I guess luckily I'm a bookworm. I don't
Hey,
like reading books during the day, but like at like 12 in the night,
Yeah, he pops open a book at midnight.
that's a really good thing. And all my friends that read are the smartest people I know. So
Well, you have a movie buff. Do you have a favorite movie?
yeah, old school 1980s. I like Weird Science. If you guys remember that movie,
Yeah,
I don't know why, but
yeah,
it's
I
different.
remember that movie.
I love it. And that and the old 1980s Ninja Turtles movie. I remember going to the movies to see it with my father, my grandfather, and those two stick in my head pretty good. New movies, they're give or take. I like them here and there. It depends on what they are, but
Yeah.
Weird Science is still one of my favorites for some reason.
Have you ever watched Cool Hand Luke, like Paul Newman movie?
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's one of my favorite flicks.
Oh, Blue
Um,
Eyes. That was
yeah,
my
yeah.
dad, one of my dad's favorite guys, and he was all country, western, black and white. I mean, he
Oh yeah.
he was a grandpa, so he grew up riding horses and wearing cowboy hats. So yeah.
What's your favorite movie, Axe?
probably God, Rambo.
Rambo.
Either like any of the Rambos or the Deadpool and Wolverine movie.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
so inappropriate.
I do like me some Wolverine.
yeah. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
You have another question, Axe? You want to
Um.
ask?
Yeah. One more. I'd say. What person did you look up to as a kid?
I would say if I could remember my grandfather better, probably my grandpa. But it was not that I was super young when he passed away, but 13, you forget a lot of stuff between 13 and 19. So my grandmother, was probably the one person I looked up to the most. She knew how to cook, she knew how to clean, but she could shoot a gun. I mean, she was the one that taught me how to shoot. So oddly enough, I don't think there's many people out there the grandmother taught how to shoot. So I think her variety of skills, and she was a business lady. She had a tanning salon, a weight loss place. She had the movie store. She cut hair at a hair salon that she owned. So I liked that she ran her multiple businesses and took care of me. And our house wasn't big; it was pretty much a brick trailer, but I loved it. But she ran that all by herself, and I respected the fact that she put up with me for one. And then even when I was the biggest pain in the ass, she would tell me how awesome I was and support me. So I have to say, even throughout my time of being mad at her and thinking that she was the worst person in my life, she was the one person I looked up to the most by far. Never beat me, never put hands on me, never cursed at me, treat me with respect like she should have, as a kid. And that goes a long ways when you get older and you treat people the same way. So,
Yeah, that's. Thanks for sharing that.
yeah.
Any other questions from your end?
I just got one more.
All right.
What is your favorite gun to shoot and why?
Favorite gun? I'll give you my favorite military gun to shoot, and then I'll give you my favorite civilian gun to shoot. How about that?
Perfect.
All right, perfect.
I really like in the Marine Corps they have it's called a six shot and it shoots six 40 millimeter rounds. It looks like a big revolver. I don't know why. It's the sound I think when you pull the trigger, it's got that thump sound to it. That boom, 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 and you can almost see it come out of the barrel, and then you get that instant gratification at the end. It's got that nice big boom. So I don't know why I enjoyed shooting that so much, and I think that's a lot of Marines would probably say the same thing I just said. Um, and second to that, maybe like the GMG or like our machine guns that shoot 40 millimeter rounds, explosives. And then in the civilian world, I really enjoy shooting my Glock. I really like anything 9 millimeter. I really enjoy as much as I enjoy shooting an AR. I'm counting pennies and dollars every time I shoot that thing. So I definitely have less stress on me as I shoot my my Glock, and I can do the same thing. For a lot of my friends, they'll shoot pistol carbines and things like that, and I feel if I can get good with my pistol and stay proficient with that, it's a lot harder to shoot than a rifle. I'll still stay proficient with my rifle. So I like the Glock in my civilian world because I can go to the range pretty much whenever I want, and I really, really miss and enjoyed shooting anything that shot grenades, but mostly that 6 shot and that GMG grenade launcher. So
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
yeah,
That
of
was what
course.
you were like. You asked me
Yeah.
that. That was your first question you wanted to ask him.
You guys can ask me whatever you want. I don't care.
Well, I think it's a good segue because we met you at an event where, for the Sentinel Foundation, where it was really a shooting event where we got hands-on instruction from you and some other great folks that really took us under their wing, and we got to shoot a variety of different guns. And we were so impressed with not only the people in that organization but the mission. And I know that's an important part of what you're doing now. Do you mind sharing some of that work, like the work you're doing, and how important the Sentinel Foundation is, and what they do?
No, yeah, I'd appreciate being able to talk about that. As you can see, I've got my Seminole garb on, got my shirt, my hat. I got into this because of a friend of mine, Glenn Devitt. Back when COVID first started, we knew a mutual friend, a guy named Brian Minge. He was our martial arts instructor at my unit there on Bragg. So Brian calls me and says, "Hey, I've got a friend of mine, Glenn, that's doing some counter trafficking and child rescue stuff that I think you would enjoy doing." I had just quit my job, or I just left the job that I liked, paid well, but it really wasn't for me. And I think there was just time to part ways. So I was kind of in limbo. It was COVID. I had some savings. So I was sitting around feeling sorry for myself. And I thought, you know what, probably good to get out there and do something positive, something not military related, not shooting, no tactics or nothing like that. Be able to use, some of the skill sets and keep everything sharp, but at the same time not be in that, military capacity. And when I started, the first job we went on was in Peru, and COVID happened while we were there, and we had to leave. So I was really disappointed that we didn't get to go out and do, an operation. And then almost immediately following, we had raised quite a bit more money and had actually linked up with the Tim Tebow Foundation, and ended up going back down to Haiti. And that was the first real operational trip that I remember where I could actually put some of the things I learned, while I was in the military into use into something besides the military. So once we got out there and started going after, some of the folks that were either trafficking children or abusing children or whatever, without getting into too much detail, the level of abuse, and the amount of time they had been doing was just mind blowing to me. And I think we know that in the States, we've got the FBI and we've got HSI and you've got all these people that are out there doing great stuff, and you assume they're all doing the right thing. And you get to other places and you're like, well, why don't they have counter trafficking here? Why don't they stop people like that here if they know who they are? And I just remember being really tied to it, and I really enjoy the problem set. And to your point earlier, there's a lot of flexibility that comes with being here. And I started off there with Glenn. Glenn was the CEO, and I was the only operator here at the time. It was just me and him. And then as we grew and got bigger, we started hiring other operators out of my old unit and other retired military guys and other retired law enforcement officers, and we kind of built this, crew of guys and girls up that go out and take this skill set they think is long forgotten once they retire, and they put it to good use. So we have, I would say, the widest variety of employees in a nonprofit that I've seen so far. Everybody from business, commercial real estate, all the way down to special missions unit operators and FBI agents, you name it, former agency folks. So I think that we spend a lot of time thinking about problems that are harder than we should be able to solve, if that makes sense. We like the harder problems, the longer problems, the bigger plays, the ones that people don't want to go after because they're too complex. We just got back from Uganda. One of our operators came back with a trip to Uganda. We go there about once every other month. We're down in Haiti working with the Haitian government trying to get back in and do counter trafficking there. We have another one of our ladies that came over from law enforcement. Her name is Yvette. I think you guys met her while we were in Marion. She's working the law enforcement side, and she's doing a great job going through some online leads and other things, trying to get to other cases. So we're going down other avenues, and we keep growing and getting more capable. Built out our intel department, so it's more like a small, military group now that's got the capabilities of operators and law enforcement and intel. So we've grown from one or two guys that can go out and do one or two things to 15 to 20 people with another 30 to 40 people as assets that we can use to go out all over the world, and take on bigger problem sets and evacuations and emergency situations like Ukraine, Afghanistan. We've been all over the world doing things that we thought we couldn't do and trying to take off bites probably bigger than we could chew. And luckily, thank God, through lots of prayer of us and other people and great donors, we've been able to do those things. So I can't say enough good stuff about the people that work there, and I wouldn't be here with them if I didn't think they were awesome. Yeah.
That's so good to hear. It's such a privilege to like support an organization like that that's bringing needed awareness to a major problem. And I just want to thank you and everyone involved there. How, if someone listening to this wanted to get involved, where would they get a hold? Just the website at Sentinel Foundation is the best way to make a donation or to help in any way?
Yeah, you can go our website. We flip-flopped it, so it was a little bit harder to find initially. And it's, instead of Sentinel Foundation, it is foundationsentinel.org. And I would say you can Google Sentinel Foundation now. We've done enough stuff to kind of hit the media. We come up quite often. So we just did a evacuation back in March, April out of Haiti. Took about 60 kids that were special needs over to Jamaica, just because of the civil war and the situation that's going on there. So we should come up. If you can't find us, you can always get a hold of me. You guys have my email address, and it's easy. It's my name, Taylor, Taylor, at foundationsentinel.org. So anybody wants to reach out to me directly, feel free. I can give more information, or if guys are looking for work or to help out, I'm also happy to take those as well.
And the final thing I want to bring up is you up you're up in the mountains right now with some of the devastation. I've just seen pictures and some videos, and it's been really bad. So maybe give the listeners and us sitting here a little perspective of how bad it is.
Well, I have the luxury of sitting here in Carthage right now, loading up supplies, and we got a Humvee sold to us at a very cheap price with a trailer, so we can actually get through some of those mountain roads. We have two helicopters that came up with Corey Mills out of Florida, no less. Came all the way up from Melbourne, and they brought some supplies with them. They've got one of our Sentinel operators on their aircraft, a fellow by the name of Dan Gill, and then Corey is on the other one. So they've been doing, we call them split operations. So one helicopter's going to one location and another one's going to another, pretty much all day today. And right before I called you, there was a older man, I think 82 years old. I think he's up around Spruce Pine or Burnsville. And when they got to him, he was having a heart attack. He was coding, and they got him to the hospital in Johnson City before he passed away. So I think that they've been, my daughter and I have been here, and the rest of our Sentinel guys loading up and getting ready to drive down on Thursday. We got lucky enough for a group to give us a location up in Banner Elk for us to kind of base out of, which is kind of right in the middle of everything we need to be in, Boone, Asheville area. But we've gotten more supply drops. Folks will send us a pin and say, hey, we're loading supplies up here. Here's an HOZ. Come pick it up and drop it off whoever needs it most. Mostly churches, to be honest with you. So tons of churches, tons of volunteer fire departments are collecting food and supplies as they can, and they're reaching out to us on Facebook and other means to try and get those supplies picked up and dropped off to folks they know need it. There's probably 30 or more missing persons requests we've gotten, and we'll probably start tackling that tomorrow. But we've been trying to go for highest need to least highest need. So for the people we knew were hurting, elderly, kids, people that were stuck without food and water, we kind of went through that list first, and now we're down to people that are missing, families that haven't heard from their nieces, nephews, kids, grandpas. So I think tomorrow that's what the guys will be doing. But our ground team should be running pretty hard by Thursday evening, and we've got a few Air Force guys that specialize in extractions. They're going to go up and try to clear some of these mountain roads to try to get some folks out. And we're working with North Carolina, the state, and federal government as we can or as we need to. They've got some roadblocks set up and things like that, which makes sense trying to keep the looting and stuff down. So we're trying to work through them and do as much as we can with the assets that we have. And luckily for us, we continue to build our credibility. So when we say we're going to do something, people volunteer a lot of assets. So we try to use those responsibly and put them to action as soon as possible.
Well, we appreciate all the effort, man. It's you guys are serving people at a really high level. So thanks for all the efforts. It's not unnoticed. It has to be a really good feeling, I'm sure.
It feels nice. I feel kind of crappy being here in Carthage when I should be up in the mountains, but that's
Sounds
okay.
like you're going to be there soon. So
I'll be there Thursday, no problem.
yeah. Well, we appreciate having you on, and we're looking forward to seeing you at another Sentinel Foundation event in the near future.
I'm looking forward to it. It was a pleasure. It was good shooting with you guys. Thanks for inviting me on the podcast. I hope I answered any of your questions.
Yeah, you did great. Yeah, thanks.
Thank y'all. Ax, good to see you again.
I see you too.
See you, brother.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Hey, good interview.
Thanks for joining us today on Making a Man. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with others. Together, we can keep inspiring and guiding the next generation. Thank you. See you next time.
Oh!